so much of the role of directing is just, you set up a circumstance and you wait for something that may or may not happen. And if it does happen and it happens in the right way, then it's a miracle and it's there forever. And you just, you're just, it's a gift. After Sweet Hereafter, when I got the Academy Award nominations, it was like, okay, so what am I going to do next? And the thing about Felicia's Journey is that I knew it was going to get made. There were, I could see from my producer's antenna that that this project was viable. There was this big studio project with a really heavy hitter, producer, and I remember, he really wanted me to make this film. It was called Killer Spy. It was the Richard Ames story, the person, the biggest traitor, I guess, in U.S. history, who kind of, sold all these spies to the Soviet, all these intel to the Soviets, and betrayed his country. There was a major actor attached. It was a really good script, and I remember the night when I told him that I was going to do Felicia's Journey, and he took me for dinner. He said, "Are you insane? Like this is a studio film with this actor attached, and it's a go project, and you're going to leave that to do a film about like a serial killer in Birmingham?" And I went, "Yes, that's what I'm going to do." And that film, Killer Spy, was never made.
Wow.
Oh. And I could say, it was Art Linson, that was the producer, so he's a very heavy hitter producer. He was we had a great relationship. I can even tell you who the actor was at the time. It was like Kevin Spacey, right? I remember that. So it was all viable, except it never got made. The actor, interestingly enough, who's really curious about this sort of thing is Christopher Plummer, because the one thing that I was surprised when I first worked with Chris is that he doesn't like to do many takes. You rehearse, and he comes and he presents his take. And, the natural impulse is, okay, let's try it again, see what we're going to get. And Chris always resists that. He goes, well, didn't you like what I did with that take? And yes. So why do you want to do it again? Was there something specific that you want differently done? And then you come up with this, well, just for insurance. And then I'll never forget this moment on Era when Christopher looked at me and said, well, I presume you do have insurance on this project. Yes. So if there's any technical problems, then you have insurance that we could then do it again, and they would pay. Yes. So then, in heaven's name, why wouldn't we just move on? And I went, I guess you're right. I remember when we were doing Where the Truth Lies, and this incredible moment with, in this weird threesome with Kevin Bacon and Colin Firth and Rachel Blanchard, and it's a very extreme scene, and where something goes terribly wrong, and Kevin Bacon has this incredible line. I don't want to give it away, but he just starts yelling at Colin's character because he's transgressed a line. I'm not going to get specifically into what happens sexually, but it's like this line that's totally crossed. And I remember, it's a very extreme scene, and it was all shot in a master. But I'll never forget how excited Kevin Bacon was at the end of it. Just like, oh my god, that was so amazing to be able to be in that space.
Nice.
And it's the license that you have, that acting gives you to explore spaces that you would not, otherwise would be incredibly transgressive.
Now, even though producer Ivan Reitman had wanted you for Chloe, seeing that it was a high-profile film, Sony, and had Julianne Moore and Amanda Seyfried and Liam Neeson, and you didn't write it, I was just curious, how much freedom did you have to kind of make it your own?
Why that film is really personal to me, I won't get into the reasons, but it was super personal to me. And I knew that it was dealing with this issue of how we don't understand the nature of attraction. Julianne Moore's character will not understand what Chloe is projecting into her. Chloe is looking for a female presence like Catherine. What Catherine's projecting into Chloe is like a whole sexual identity that she feels she's lost, that is no longer there for her husband. So these two women are projecting something really deep into each other that neither of them completely understands. And the moment I read it, I kind of went, okay, so what's interesting here is that this woman is not feeling great, like Chloe. She's a prostitute. She's not feeling great about herself. She has, these encounters with these strangers in these hotel rooms. She feels terrible at herself. For the first time in her life, she can now call this woman that she admires, a professional woman, a doctor, to come into the room, and she could tell her exactly what's happened. But if she makes up the lie that it's like happened to this woman's husband, she knows she has this rapt audience. And that to me was like, wow, what a crazy, I don't know if another director would have responded to the story that way, but that was such a compelling decision she makes. Again, like we were talking about this before, like when the characters may not understand why they're doing something, but it's very deep for them, and it's rooted in something in their past. And I felt that if I got the right performances, and I knew I've been a long time admirer of Julianne Moore, like, since I saw her in Vanya on 42nd Street.
Mm.
But the moment like Amanda came into that audition, like she was like, oh, this is the person. Like it has to be Amanda to play this role. And she embodies that all. Like she's like electric in the movie. The reason why that film got funded, weirdly enough, was because I had just done a Samuel Beckett play with Liam Neeson in New York.
Oh, nice.
And, and I was able to bring Liam on because we wanted to do something else together. And so it's weird that the film got made because of Samuel Beckett.
Now, can you talk a little bit about writing the screenplay, the original screenplay, versus, say, adapting something or doing someone else's script, especially how it pertains to Guest of Honor? Because obviously that's an Atom Egoyan original. Is it more fluid for you as a filmmaker working from that kind of original material?
Well, that's a really good question. Is it more fluid? It's fluid in a sense, in as much as what your stylistic uh, preferences are. In the case of something like Guest of Honor, yes, it's similar to these other earlier films like Exotica, Adoration, even Adjuster, in that they're using a structure which is less linear. In this case, there are like 5 different time frames in a way. In this particular story, I wanted it to be clear to the viewer where those demarcations were. And in a way, it sets it up that way. A young woman goes to visit a priest. Her father has just passed away, and they're preparing his service. And once she starts telling, the priest doesn't think he knows who this person is, her father, who is a food inspector played by David Thewlis. But as he begins to hear her retelling of the father's story, you understand that there's a connection there. Yes, to answer your question, I mean, these are characters that are super close to me. They're very vivid to me, and as I'm writing them, I have a very clear sense of why they do what they do, what they think that they're achieving in doing what they do, and it's a type of storytelling that I, I I'm drawn to it because it's not resolved to me until I actually make the movie. It's not like the script is like this bulletproof thing. Like it is like with a film like Remember, that was a great script, and everything that was really that makes that film work was there embedded in the script. In a script like Exotica, or a script like The Adjuster, or a script like Guest of Honor, it's an alchemy that forms while you're editing it, while you're clearly the performances have to be really compelling, and but there's a whole structure that might shift as you're editing, as you're adding the sound design, as you're adding the music, those are moving parts.
Well, I mean, to say that you're in your element is an understatement. Anytime I think of Egoyan, I think layered work, layered story, layered performances. But it brings up an interesting a thing that I've always wanted to know about, which is when you do write a script like Guest of Honor, like
Yeah,
Exotica, like The Adjuster, and things are and you're juxtaposing time, you're time jumping and
yeah.
going back and forth in the story. Is that in the script, or do you write the script
Oh yeah.
linear and then
No, no,
edit
no,
that?
no. It's definitely in the script, but not necessarily in the shape it is, or even Sweet Hereafter. I mean, the Sweet Hereafter. If I was to show you the rough cut, or the like, it's wildly different from the final film, the shape of the film. We totally reconstructed it, but the idea of those multiple timelines was always there. It's part of the DNA of the project.
Nice. Clueless. I mean, listen, he does some of his best work in this movie. I mean, he's really good. Now, did you? What made you think of him? Did you write it with him or somebody like him in mind? And how did he get cast?
Well, I mean, look, his performance in Mike Leigh's Naked is something that it is so indelible. Like that to me was such an extraordinary performance. That film was really in inspiring to me, and I saw it right before Exotica, and I just remember that character. I mean, you can see echoes of that character in Eric in Exotica, maybe, like, like this person who's just who's able to express himself but is not really able to deal with this existential pain he's experiencing about his life. And so as I was writing this character, I always saw that he was someone from outside, and that he was a newcomer, to the country. And in a way, this idea that, he focuses on ethnic restaurants as a food inspector. I mean, we see him, going into these places where people have tried to bring their culture into this mosaic, and he makes references many times, to the fact that, he knows how difficult it is to try and fit in. I had David in mind. You never know how an actor is going to respond. You send them the script. I didn't know him, so I was sending it to him out of the blue, and he responded to it, and that was just like such a gift.
And does his character Jim, is that based on anyone you know, or was that just strictly
Yeah,
from?
I mean, that's a good question, because it only became clear to me after I saw him playing it that it's based entirely on this person I knew as a kid growing up in Victoria, the Scottish person who was an expat, and I wasn't aware until I saw the film that it was based on actually someone. His name was James, but we called him Jim Fowler, he's passed away. But there's something about the temperament of Jim Davis, as played by David Thewlis, which is really inspired by this person.
See, even talking to you here, it makes me want to rewatch the movie again.
Right. Now, and now it's on a streaming service, so you don't have to worry about, like, you can watch it as many times as you want on Criterion.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, two of the things that continue to stand out, not just here, but in all of your work during the years, is the continued collaboration with both, your cinematographer, Paul, and your composer, Mychael. How did their contributions kind of inform your work, and how has working with them changed or grown over all of these years?
It's such a beautiful thing to have these collaborators. It's such an amazing thing. It's funny, looking at the poster of Exotica. Like, I mean, that film is unimaginable without Mychael Danna's music, and how he uses those motifs and themes to kind of locate you in the film emotionally. Because we have to remember that a lot of the emotions in these films are buried. You're not entirely sure where and how these feelings are being sourced, but the music gives you access. Sometimes the music anticipates an emotion that you only understand towards the end of the film, or so you're aware that there's a feeling there, you're not sure what it is. And so the collaboration with Mychael is hugely important. And this film it's monumental, because the character of Veronica is school band instructor, but she's also a young composer. So she's playing her own music. So the themes that she's playing become really important.
And Paul's cinematography, especially on this one,
Yeah.
I would say I remember a very specific shot where David is standing near the car, and there's this great bridge, and there's this smokestack in
Yeah.
behind him, like something like that. Was that on purpose, or
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
from you
look,
and Paul?
when you're shooting something that's has a schedule. I mean, you have to know when to move your crew to certain places. So you have to know, like in that particular case, that was something that was scouted. We knew that that smokestack is belching out that smoke like every hour on the hour. So we knew we had to have a camera there specifically, and also that using a longer lens would compress that. Paul, and this is the nature of our relationship, and it's something I treasure. Paul understands light. So I will, I'm making a lot of the choices in terms of framing, in terms of camera movement, but in terms of the quality of the light, I will express it to Paul, but I will allow him to create that. Now, the thing that's changed a lot, obviously, in the last couple of films, is that we now have monitors, and we're all sort of watching on a screen what the shot's going to look like. But I still remember, for instance, walking onto a set of Exotica, and I remember like looking at the scene as it was about to be shot and saying to Paul, it's so bright. This is way brighter than I had in mind, and Paul just sort of said, just wait, just wait. And of course, what he's done is that he made it bright so that he can like the f-stop could be really, really small, and then therefore the blacks are that much more saturated.
Since we're talking about those two, I was curious to know, and I could tell you mine, but I was curious to know, what was your favorite work visually from Paul, from which film, and what was your favorite, your personal favorite in terms of scores from Mychael? Do you have, if you had to pick one?
I would say that I love the adjuster because it was this excitement to work in scope. CinemaScope was just like, and it was like, it fell into our lap. It was a weird situation. There was an American film that was shooting in Toronto at the time. The lenses were here. We would never have been able to afford it on the budget we had. But suddenly we got this deal with Panavision, and we had these incredible lenses, C series lenses, and the way they look for that film was just monumental for me. I was just so excited every moment we were shooting. I was just like so excited because it felt so cool for that particular film to have those lenses. I don't know, what's yours, Jason?
I would say for visual, Exotica, because it's you get in so many dark places, but we're seeing everything, as clearly as you wanted us to see
Yeah,
it. So
yeah,
for visual, Exotica, and for music, granted, the stuff for Sweet Hereafter and Exotica is great, but for me, it's the adjuster. The adjuster
right.
really drags you into
Yeah,
into that world, and really makes you feel that emotional stuff that Noah felt, and that Noah, that was encapsulating Noah. Now, I know there are no sequels to your films, and of course there never should be, but since you are the writer as well as the filmmaker, I have to ask your opinion on the insight just past the movie. You can give me your thoughts on just one of the following three characters in terms of where they went, and in terms of the events after the movie and beyond. You could pick it. Noah Render from The Adjuster, Francis from Exotica, or Nicole from The Sweet Hereafter.
well, I mean, the one that really uh, compels you to kind of wonder where their life would go would be Noah Render, right? And I think, I don't know if I've told this to you, but after that film came out, HBO optioned it as a series.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I wasn't. I gave them I wasn't involved. A pilot was done. I never saw it, and so it never really. But this idea of the insurance adjuster, the motel, these different encounters with these clients. I mean, there was more to resolve about about Noah Render, I think. But the one thing about the pilot is that it didn't really have the wife wasn't a film censor, and it didn't have Baba and Mimi, which are such a Moy Chaikin and Gabrielle Rose characters. So um, it was tricky to kind of present the story without all those aspects. But I wasn't involved with it creatively. So that would be the person I would probably I mean, those other two characters, yeah, like I think what's beautiful about where those films end is that you can imagine what happens with their life, but I think there's a major plot hook that happens at the end of The Adjuster when you find out that it's a family that he's actually sort of found at a fire sale. I
Right.
mean, which kind of like leads to go, okay, so then what happens? Like, like and there's other things that could be explored. Yeah, I don't know. How about having Noah Render become a bus driver, and then be the bus driver who has this accident where he takes a busload of kids that then go into a lake. Then
Man.
then the community of kids like don't drown, but they form an underwater community, and it thrives, and they become like weird phantoms that come back to haunt Francis Brown.
There you go.
Not like
That sounds like a really bad pitch. Oh, I want to pitch Atom Egoyan in this movie. It's perfect for him, and you're like, oh man. Can you sum up your most frequent cast members in one word? Just whatever comes to mind for these cast members. Arsene, of course.
rambunctious,
Yeah. The great David Hemblin.
foreboding,
Gabrielle Rose.
playful,
The late, great Maury Chaykin.
devious,
The quirky Don McKellar.
the quirky Don McKellar,
Elias Koteas.
complex, like complex, tortured, yeah,
Bruce Greenwood.
open,
Sarah Polley.
wise.
Through her own conveying of your influence, made some great films as well that we got to enjoy.
Exceptional filmmaker. And I think that, you look at what she did with not only Away from Her, but the stories we tell is just an incredible piece of work. The one thing I'll say is I was really involved with this. There was a GoFundMe campaign to try and keep all of these amazing art cinemas alive, and because this is, they a lot of them are really, it's a challenging time to be a cinema anyhow, but this particular pandemic has been like so unbelievably challenging for the people who run these cinemas, people who work in these cinemas. So this is a way of supporting the cinemas, right? You're going to your local cinema and buying a ticket to see this film virtually, but the distributor Kino Lorber has been generous enough to kind of like kind of share that price with the cinema. So you're helping the cinema as well. So from what I understand, you go to the site and you choose the cinema that you would normally frequent and buy the ticket from them. I mean, it's a beautiful way to kind of preserve that tradition and that very special pact that you make with the people who have devoted themselves to showing movies.
Okay, so yeah, you can check out Guest of Honor July 10th. You can go to Kino Marquee and you can purchase a ticket, and it will, of course, go to not only the film but to the art houses as well, helping them. And of course, you can catch a lot of Adam's past work on the Criterion channel, The Sweet Hereafter, Exotica, The Adjuster. If you haven't seen these movies, I wish I was you, because you get to experience them fresh for the first time. So, but even multiple times, it's still worth it. So thank you so much, Adam, for speaking. Now, recently, in March of this year, Friday the 13th, right before the pandemic, thankfully, we got a chance to do a 40th anniversary screening of Friday the 13th. Now, we also had an immersive experience on this. It was an amazing thing with great actors. We had makeup effects done by Brittany Fontaine, who was a graduate of the Tom Savini makeup program, and a great time was had by all who came. And if you didn't get a chance to see that event, check down in the description and you can see a video that was put together of the event so that you can relive it vicariously right from your own home.